client retention. We've all heard the saying that keeping an existing customer is far cheaper and easier than acquiring a new one. It's just common sense. Yet, so many organizations, including those in the business events industry, struggle to hold on to their clients year after year. Why is that? And what can we do about it? According to industry experts, retaining a customer is extremely easier than trying to find a new one. And it's dramatically more cost efficient too. There's a Trade Show News Network article that doubles down on this exact same topic. Research backs up this gut feeling that you've got. Acquiring a new customer could cost 5 times more than retaining an existing one. And not only that, but 80% of your future revenue is likely to come from existing clients, the ones that are in your bucket right now. Let that sink in. The lion's share of your future success hinges on the customers that you already have. And clearly, improving retention is not just a, nice to have. It's like an imperative of your business's success, right? Yet, despite knowing this, many industries suffer from this high churn rate. And the business events sector is a prime example. One analysis on TSNN observed that the trade show industry often works against itself by adding unnecessary hurdles for customers. Those hurdles lead to frustrating experiences and ultimately just lost clients. And the numbers speak volumes. Consider this comparison. Software as a service, SaaS. These companies, which are laser focused on their experience, enjoy a B2B customer retention rate averaging 92%. Meanwhile, trade show organizers have historically seen average exhibitor retention rates around 80%, meaning roughly 1 in 5 exhibitors doesn't come back the next time. If 5 of your biggest customers walked away, how would that impact your bottom line? And beyond the revenue loss, think of the wasted effort. You'll have to spend the time and money finding new clients to replace the ones who left. So what's going wrong? Why are customers, in whatever shape or form that they take, not sticking around? The truth is that client retention issues are often symptoms of a poorly designed customer journey. And every interaction a client has with your company, from the tip of the spear, first glimpse of your brand that fades into the subconscious, to the follow-up after a literal or figurative, boots on the ground purchase, it's all part of their journey. And at each step of the journey, they are making choices to engage further or to fall off, to deepen the relationship or to drift away. And if we as businesses are inadvertently creating friction or failing to meet their needs at any stage, we risk losing them. Think about your own experiences as a customer. Have you ever abandoned a purchase because the sign-up process was too confusing, took too long, or decided not to return to an event because the experience didn't live up to what you thought it would? These decisions aren't random. They happen at specific inflection points in the customer journey. And our goal here today is to identify those critical phases where retention was won or lost. And in doing so, discuss how we can optimize each step of the journey to keep our clients coming back. I'll be speaking broadly as a business strategy discussion, but with a special eye on applications in the business events industry. Even if you're not running trade shows or conferences or providing services to them, the principles that we cover here will be relevant to you still. And if you are an event vendor or a show manager or an exhibitor, you'll find these insights hit just a little bit closer to home. I'm going to draw on real case studies and examples from industry publications like TSNN, PCMA's Convene, and Trade Show Executive, and mix in some of my own experiences to illustrate what works and what really doesn't. And by the end, we'll outline a strategic module to optimize your customer journey, to remove friction points, personalize the experience, and ultimately just to boost your client retention. This is purely about thinking differently about your customer relationships. So let's dive in. First, by breaking down the critical phases of the customer journey where retention problems often arise. Every customer's journey can be viewed as a series of stages or moments. At each stage, the customer is asking, is this experience worth continuing? To improve retention, we need to design each phase intentionally so that the answer to that question is a resounding yes. Let's break down a typical customer journey into a few critical phases and examine why each is so important. Initial decision and onboarding. This is the very beginning. For an event attendee or an exhibitor, it's the moment that they decide to commit, the registration or sign up. For any business, it's when a prospect becomes that first-time customer. And at this stage, a lot can go wrong. If the process of onboarding is cumbersome, confusing, or feels high risk, people may bail out before they even really begin the journey. In the events world, organizers are starting to ask pointed questions like, what is the actual customer journey that potential visitors go through before coming to the show? And what drives the non-visitors' decisions not to show up? In other words, what might turn people away early? Or simply, Is it just the fear of the unknown? We have to identify these barriers at the start. And a recent study by AMR International is reported in PCMA's Convene, stressed that understanding what attendees want and how the event meets their expectations is a crucial step in driving attendance. If you don't address a customer's core questions and needs right at the beginning, you may never get them through the door at all. The product and service delivery is what we're going to talk about next. And once the customer has committed and shows up, how is their actual experience? Using the product, attending your conference, interfacing with your team. But most importantly, what is the cadence at which their expectations align or misalign with what they're actually experiencing? And the experience itself must fulfill the promises that you made during the marketing and onboarding phase. So that is your primary mechanism to manage expectations appropriately. Many businesses lose clients here by over-promising and under-delivering. If an exhibitor signs up for a trade show expecting to meet a certain caliber of buyer, but then finds the show traffic to be like, they're going to be disappointed. And in fact, one study shows that 93% of exhibitors say that the quality of attendees is the most impactful factor in their decision to continue participating in an event. That outranks other concerns, even big ones like cost. It makes sense though. If the core value isn't there, no amount of perks or freebies can make up for it. And on the attendee side, consider what they value during an event. Relevant content, networking opportunities, and a smooth experience. And if instead they encounter logistical nightmares, disengaging content, or poor customer service, their trust erodes very, very quickly. According to a TSNN report, 70% of customers leave because of poor customer service. In an event context, poor service could mean anything from unhelpful staff to confusing navigation on site to programming that's just kind of like meh. And this phase is make or break. It's where you deliver on the value proposition. Any major friction or failure here will directly translate to churn. For service providers in the event industry, the entire planning timeframe is included in this category and is an ongoing necessity to being on point with the service that is accompanying that final product on show site. After the initial experience, the journey isn't over. In fact, for retention, this post-experience phase is critical. It's what happens after the event ends, after the purchase is made, in the weeks or months before the next renewal or next year's show. And surprisingly, this phase is often neglected. Many organizations sort of go dark once a customer is paid and the service is delivered, until it's time to ask for the next sale, that is. And that's a mistake. The period immediately after is when the customer is evaluating, was it worth it? Did I achieve my goals? And do I feel good about continuing this relationship? And if an exhibitor doesn't get any follow-up about how to improve results, or at least a thank you, they can be left unsure if anyone actually cared that they were there at all, and whether or not they were successful. Businesses that excel at retention stay engaged with customers in between major transactions. And they check in, provide additional value, and guide the client towards the next opportunity. This is also the time to address any unspoken issues. And keep in mind, for every customer who actually complains about a problem, 26 other customers experience the issue but stayed silent. So if you receive a complaint or a piece of negative feedback post-event, post-purchase, treat it like a goldmine of insight. It likely represents many others who didn't speak up. And proactively reach out with surveys, feedback calls, or community forums. They can uncover those hidden pain points before they lead to attrition. And most importantly, by proactively searching for this feedback and simplifying the ability to collect and share with you, you're giving an outlet for your clients to magnetize to, rather than forums that are beyond your ability to control, such as Google reviews or other industry forums. Now, across all of these phases after purchase, onboarding, core experience, and ongoing engagement, there are key touch points that influence the customer's feeling. And these touch points are the moments of interaction between the customer and your organization. A marketing email, a registration portal, a welcome at the venue, a support call, an invoice, a follow-up survey, and so on. Each one is a chance to either strengthen the relationship or weaken it. PCMA's Convene had an article that defines customer journey mapping in a really good way. They define it as the complete set of experiences which customers go through when interacting with a company or brand. And looking at what customers are trying to achieve with each set of interactions and whether or not they can achieve this in a satisfactory way. A journey map highlights points of friction or frustration, broken processes, and whether the internal workings of the organization support the customer's end goals. Cool, so what does that handy definition mean in practice though, right? It means putting yourself into your customer's shoes step by step and being brutally honest about what they encounter. Is there a point of frustration somewhere in the path? For instance, maybe the payment process is unclear. That's a friction point. Or maybe customers struggle to find information that they need. Or an exhibitor trying to track down the shipping deadlines. That's a broken process internally that creates external frustration. These are the moments where a customer might say, you know what, this is too hard. Maybe I won't come back next time. And what you need to keep in mind is what you don't know. Don't make assumptions about what is creating the problem unless you've gotten the information from the source, the client. And even at that, unless you have a consensus of clients singing the same song, you don't know until you have a pattern that emerges. Let's illustrate with a quick narrative. Imagine you're managing a large annual conference and a potential attendee named Jane visits your event website. This is the awareness and consideration phase. She's trying to decide if attending will be worth her time and money. And if your website and marketing materials clearly communicate the value, say highlighting how past attendees achieved career growth or found solutions to their problems, Jane is intrigued. Cool, gate checked and passed. But suppose your registration process is clunky, the link is hard to find, the form is 5 pages long, and pricing options are confusing as all get out. Jane might abandon her registration way. That's a lost attendee before day 1, due to a journey flaw at the very first phase. Now assume Jane does register and attends. During the event, the core experience of the product usage, things initially go well, and good sessions, nice venue. But on day 1, there was a massive check-in line due to understaffing. So she missed the keynote. Later, she can't find session rooms because maps are not clear, and no staff are around to try to help. These might seem like small annoyances, but they accumulate. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Each annoyance is a tiny withdrawal from the trust bank of the customer relationship. And by the end, Jane had some good takeaways, but also a lingering feeling that parts of the event were just frustrating. When she gets the follow-up email to attend next year, that same memory will make her hesitate. Maybe nobody follows up with Jane to ask her feedback or to provide her with materials from the sessions that she attended. She feels like the event just took her money and moved on to the next one. Meanwhile, another conference that she attended does send her a personalized follow-up. They thank her by name, send her a summary of key insights from the sessions that she went to, and maybe even connected her on LinkedIn via the conference app with fellow attendees that she met along the way. Which event do you think that Jane is more likely to attend next year if she's trying to prioritize budget? The one that continued to engage and deliver value after the fact, of course. This is a hypothetical, but it's also a very real scenario, with each element being pulled from experiences that have been either shared with me or that I've lived personally. The takeaway here is that retention is not a single point in time. It's the sum of the customer's experience across all of these critical phases. And a failure at any one phase can undo a lot of good done elsewhere. You might have fantastic content at your event, great core experience for your product, but if the registration or follow-up is terrible, that could lose the customer. Conversely, a few thoughtful improvements at a pain point can significantly boost overall satisfaction. For example, organizers learned that something as simple as providing potential attendees with a personalized agenda in advance, tailored to their interests, can be a game changer. And it turns out that receiving a customer agenda ahead of an event is a strong motivator for attendance. That's one touch point, sending an agenda in the early part of the journey, pre-event planning. And this can sway a decision to attend. If you hadn't examined the journey, you might not realize how important that one interaction is. Okay, now we've talked through a few of these elements after purchase, and let's recap. To resolve retention issues, we must understand the customer journey holistically. Identify the phases: early decisions, onboarding, and the main experience, and post-experience engagement, and inspect each for friction and drop-off risks. And as the saying goes, the devil is in the details, and the details of your customer's experience can matter greatly. Now that we've mapped out where things can go wrong in theory, let's look at some real-world examples of how this plays out, both the pitfalls and the best practices in our industry and beyond. Sometimes the best way to illustrate the power of a well-designed customer journey is to see it in action. And in this section, I'll share a few case studies and examples, some of cautionary tales, and others of unusual success drawn from the events industry. These stories will show how customer journey design directly impacted client retention. And as we go through them, think about how the lessons might apply to your own business context. First up, let's talk about when a client walks away. Let's start with a story of what can happen when we fail to meet our customers' needs at critical journey points. Back in 2008, at an industry forum, a keynote case study was presented for a Fortune 500 company that had analyzed the value they were getting from participating in trade shows. And the results were not ideal from their perspective. They felt the return wasn't there. They reduced their trade show participation by 45% and funneled that budget into launching their own corporate event with an audience that they already held. Imagine being the organizer who lost nearly half of that giant client's trade show spend if it was all with you. It's devastating, but also sheds light on a flaw that might have been hidden below the surface. The company decided to take control of their customer journey themselves by hosting their own events because the existing shows weren't fulfilling their objectives. They could then dictate what was most beneficial for their own brand or what they deemed it to be. And why weren't they getting value from their previous strategy? Insufficiency. Either the events or the business's goals shift over time. It's a natural thing that can occur. We can infer that somewhere along the way, the organizers of these shows didn't listen closely enough or adapt to this client's needs. And quite possibly, that we as an industry as a whole were not creating the necessary flexibility for successes since that permeated through multiple events. In these instances, the exhibitor had been asking for certain programmatic or sponsorship changes and felt ignored. Sometimes they are the big important customer that hold the whole thing together. You lose them and many others might follow. This cautionary tale underscores that retention starts with listening. If a longtime client is voicing concerns, hey, we're not seeing the traffic that we used to, or something like, this show is getting too expensive for what we get, those are warning signs. You need to address them head on, maybe by adjusting part of their journey. For example, providing extra marketing support, introducing them to key attendees, or changing the package options altogether. Secondarily, their interactions aren't exclusive to you. Cross paths with no less than 5 vendors in prepping for that event. You can also pull from that bank that we talked about earlier, in the same manner that your own organization's actions can. In one case, as we saw, they might take their ball and go home. They don't want to play anymore, creating their own game, where they control the experience. And on the flip side of that, holding true to the core principles and driving factors of your organization are extremely important. A vendor who pulls out to create their own event, that is okay, and that they should, because their desires are in stark contrast to the overall program's initiatives. Holding true to the core values and initiatives are both an avid attractor and a repellent. The art is aligning that core value with the value proposition of those that are using your product or your event. Now let's switch to a positive example, one where improving the customer journey led to higher retention and satisfaction. There's a case study that's been posted about Honeycomb Strategies' efforts with the Greenbuild International Conference and Expo. It's a major event in the sustainable building industry. Greenbuild has become famous not just for its focus on green innovations, but also for how it engages its exhibitors in that mission. A case study in TSNN highlighted Honeycomb Strategies in the Greenbuild's approach. They implemented something called the Greenbuild Mandatory Exhibitor Greening Guidelines, GMEGG. Essentially, a required sustainability checklist for all of the exhibitors, and paired it with education and recognition programs. It draws on similarities to the LEED building program through the architecture and building industry. At first blush, you might not think forcing your customers, exhibitors, to do extra work, meaning complying with sustainability guidelines, could irritate them in the end. Initially, some exhibitors actually found it challenging. But what Greenbuild did here is they turned it into a journey feature that actually adds value to the exhibitors. And how is that, you say? By giving them a sense of purpose through community building. The event director of Greenbuild, Katie Gillum, explained the impact. When exhibitors participate in the GMEGG and complete the data sheet, they are connecting their own values with the event's values. Gillum noted that when an exhibitor feels a sense of belonging and commitment to a piece of that show, they recognize that they're making a mark on the event through this program. That feeling changes the game. Exhibitors no longer see themselves as just booth renters. They see themselves as partners in a larger mission. The result? Gillum said that the business's side of things resulted in better retention for exhibitors. And additionally, it increased the sense of community for exhibitors and those they interface with on site, including show management. In other words, exhibitors keep coming back year after year because the journey Greenbuild provides makes them feel valued and part of the community. They are not only buying floor space at the event, they're finding a sense of belonging in a cause and networking with like-minded professionals in the process, reinforcing the bond and going beyond the transactional component of purchasing or participating in the event. This case has a few key takeaways. First, aligning your goals with your customers' values can deepen loyalty. Greenbuild's audience cares about sustainability. And by building sustainability into the exhibitor experience, it creates a shared purpose. Second, Greenbuild went beyond a mandate of behavior. They rewarded it. Green Exhibitor Awards, and public recognition for those who excel in the sustainability guidelines. That provides positive reinforcement, another boost to retention, and who doesn't want to return and defend their title? And third, Greenbuild continued to evolve the program, adding new educational modules to keep engagement high. The journey is not static. They keep it fresh, which prevents fatigue or a feeling of stagnation. Now, you might wonder, if an approach like Greenbuild's works so well, why don't all shows do something similar? The answer is that every audience is different. Greenbuild identified something that resonated deeply with their customers. It's a core principle that drives their focus forward. Your job is to identify what that is for your clients. It might be a shared mission, like sustainability, or it might be something more straightforward, like business growth through partnership. A word of caution though, ROI is not a core mission. It can be a piece, a component, or a repercussion of a core mission that drives your cause forward. Because let's face it, every business's goal is to make money and to provide a beneficial service to the community that they support. It's the why behind the action that will cause folks to rally and to have wind in their sails, to fly to your cause, and to continue to evangelize. The common thread is making customers feel invested. And when clients feel like they have a stake in your event or your product, that their participation is more than transactional, they are far more likely to stick around. Next, let's look at how data and research in the events industry have revealed important truths about customer preferences, which in turn teach us how to adjust the journey. There is a very clear distinction between inferences and source point data though. Be sure that you can tell the difference. Earlier I mentioned that organizers found that providing a customized agenda to attendees before an event can significantly boost their interest and retention. Organizers learned that while they were busy adding things like wellness lounges and gamification to spice up events, those features don't matter much to attendees. Nice to have, yes, but not decisive. Instead, one of the strongest motivators for attendance was something much simpler. Attendees said, "Show me how this event will meet my needs and goals, and I'm interested." And it makes sense. We all want to know what we personally will get out of a tailored roadmap. A tailored roadmap of sessions and networking opportunities is immediately valuable. I always try to strategize what I'm going to do on site before I actually get there. It helps me be really efficient with my time. Another data point was networking. We assume people attend events to network, but how and when that networking happens is key. Traditionally, exhibitors always wanted to get attendee lists or set meetings in advance. That's not new. But one finding was that 68% of attendees themselves want to connect with others and attendees and exhibitors in advance of the event. This challenges one assumption that attendees just show up and stroll around casually. Modern attendees, especially younger professionals, often want to maximize their time. Help me schedule my meetings before I arrive so I can hit the ground running. Some events have capitalized on this by facilitating pre-show meeting scheduling via apps or online platforms. Those that do have seen engagement go up because both sides, the buyers and the sellers, so to speak, are finding value more efficiently. And if your event or business doesn't support that, you might unknowingly frustrate a chunk of your audience who does crave that proactive connection. With a good on-site program for business events, time is a precious commodity, and allowing for all involved to hyper-focus their efforts will allow for higher impact in those moments when you only get one go at it. Let's not forget, content is where it's at. That flashy celebrity keynote speakers were the golden ticket to draw crowds. While celebrity talks can have marketing appeal, data has shown that they're not actually the top draw for attendees when we're talking about retention. A PCMA Convene article reported that attendees want industry experts speaking on innovation more than motivational or celebrity speakers. Potent, exclusive education is tremendously valuable. They want substance over sizzle. Insights that they can't get elsewhere, delivered by people who deeply understand their field, subject matter experts. The implication for retention is massive. If an attendee comes one year and finds the sessions too surface level and not relevant, they'll skip next time. And if instead they consistently get cutting edge applicable knowledge, even if the speakers aren't famous outside of the industry, they'll consider it time well spent and plan to return. What about exhibitors? We heard one loud and clear message from them: simplicity and cost certainty. Research has shown that 61% of exhibitors said unpredictable costs have a major impact on their decision to continue participating in an event. Exhibitors often dread the nickel and diming or surprise fees that come with trade shows. Anybody been surprised by drayage? If after one go around an exhibitor feels like the budgeting process was a nightmare, they may not be keen to repeat it. 64% of exhibitors in that study agreed that turnkey, all-inclusive exhibit packages are the most important help that an organizer can offer. That's a direct call to reduce friction. They're saying, make it easy for us to exhibit. Give us one price, one package that covers the basics so we don't have to navigate a maze of add-ons. Some trade shows have responded to this by creating inclusive booth packages. For example, one price that includes the space, basic furnishings, electricity, and even custom graphics and material handling allowance, so they only have one thing to think about. Do I want to attend? Those shows often advertise how easy it is to exhibit with them. And the payoff is happier exhibitors who aren't overwhelmed by complexity. And a happier exhibitor is far more likely to rebook for the next year. What you have working against that, though, is that the vendor suppliers may have trouble facilitating a fixed cost, especially when moving from low to high cost cities, such as going from Nashville to Boston. And keep in mind that the convenience factor normally comes with a higher cost. And if you're not paying attention, that pass-through pricing could cost some folks out of participating. So my recommendation is always to offer both turnkey packages as well as a la carte offerings that allow for the best of both worlds. Those that are sophisticated enough can manage, those that aren't can also manage. One strategy that organizers have used to keep exhibitors coming back has been encouraging exhibitors to fully participate in the event, not just stand at their booth. For instance, attending educational sessions and networking events to get more value. Shows found that when exhibitors engage more and see themselves learning and networking, not just selling, they feel they get more out of the whole experience. In doing so, are more likely to come back. Personally, joining show organizers and exhibitors and their partners in a roundtable conversation, I can attest to this being absolutely 100% true. There is high value in networking in sessions, and allowing exhibiting staff the opportunity to participate during these non-peak exhibit times allows for a more constant ability to network and join into the entirety of the event. If you have the ability to completely shut one down and have the other one open, you allow for your exhibitors to not have to double their staff needs as well. Lots of little decisions like that can lead to big results, either for you or for your customers. And you just need to know what the repercussions are for the decisions that you're making in the process. Following this model requires effort and coordination, but the payoff is huge. By mapping the journey, removing frictions, personalizing experiences, growing community, and continually iterating, you create a cycle of continuous improvement in client experience. Your customers notice this. They feel that you are investing in their success and their comfort because you're literally investing time and money. And that feeling builds trust and loyalty, which are the bedrock of retention. Let's quickly connect this back to business outcomes, because retention isn't just a feel-good metric, it's a real financial impact to you. Earlier we mentioned that a small increase in retention can lead to a really huge, big jump in profits. And what we're talking about here is reducing churn by only 5% can increase profits by 25 to 125%. This is a real statistic. So why such a dramatic effect? Because retained customers not only continue to buy from you, they often buy more over time and refer others. They become advocates or raving fans, especially in the events industry. A loyal attendee or exhibitor will spread the word to peers. And word of mouth is powerful and potent free marketing that you need to tap into. Additionally, long-term clients give you more opportunities to upsell, but none of that happens if they're not retained in the first place. By optimizing the journey, you're creating a foundation for those long-term relationships to really be created. You're essentially future-proofing your client base by making sure the people who sign on with you have every reason to stay and grow with you. Even in industries facing challenges, those who focus on customer journey have weathered storms better. A recent report indicated that 79% of exhibitors plan to attend the same number of events or more next year. For instance, despite concerns about exhibitors possibly leaving trade shows for their own event, this is a pretty optimistic indicator, isn't it? That optimism likely ties back to organizers stepping up with better experiences and demonstrating the value of their customer's journey through their event, even in a changing business environment. Like losing 45% of your customers. Before you start fixing things, the tools and insights are all at your disposal. Use them to craft a journey that blows the socks off of your customers at every single turn. When you do, retention takes care of itself because customers genuinely want to continue the relationship. We've covered a lot of ground here, but the core message I want to leave you with is client retention isn't a mystery. It's a managed outcome. And one of the most powerful ways to manage it is through thoughtful customer journey design. If you remember nothing else, remember that every interaction with your customer is a chance to either build loyalty or chip away at it. The journey is the product in many ways. A seamless, positive journey creates happy customers who stick around. A journey riddled with friction or indifference creates one-time customers, or worse, negative reviews. We framed the retention problem and saw how much it matters. 5 times acquisition cost and most future revenue from current clients. We acknowledged that in industries like events, we have work to do, as unnecessary hurdles have driven churn. We set our sights on using the customer journey lens to solve this. When we broke down the critical phases of the customer journey, identifying key inflection points where customers either decide to deepen their relationship or they flee to the nearest exit. From initial onboarding to the core experience to the follow-up period, we honed in on typical traps. We learned that understanding these stages and a customer's mindset in each is crucial to pinpointing why retention might falter. And we also realized how important it is to meet customers' core needs at every single step, whether that need is in convenience, support, value, or just simply recognition. Through a few different case studies, we saw real examples. A negative example of a big client walking away. It taught us the cost of ignoring customer signals. And a positive example showed us how innovating the journey, and in this case, weaving in a sustainability initiative, can really lock in loyalty and community. We talked about simplifying the process for customers, removing friction like unpredictable fees, addresses one of their top concerns directly. The strategic module for optimization, mapping the journey, removing friction, personalizing the experience, fostering community, and continuously improving. Each step has concrete actions, basically a playbook that you can adapt to your own context. Implementing these steps creates an environment where customers feel valued, supported, and enthusiastic about continuing the relationship. Now, standing here at the end, I encourage you to reflect on your own organization. Ask yourself this: where are we possibly losing customers in the journey? Are there any unnecessary hurdles that we've unintentionally put in the customer's path? And what feedback have we been hearing, or not hearing, that indicates where people are getting frustrated or bored? Think about the last time that you as a customer felt compelled to leave a provider or not return to an event. What caused that? And on the flip side of that coin, think of a brand or event you are incredibly loyal to. What are they doing right by you? Chances are, the answers lie in the kinds of journey factors that we discussed. Maybe that loyal brand always makes things easy and anticipates your needs. Or that event makes you feel like family each year. Emulate those qualities. Gather your team and literally sketch out a customer journey map on a whiteboard. Mark the pain points with red dots and the wow points with green dots. Then brainstorm one action for each red dot that could turn it green. You might be shocked at how many straightforward improvements you can come up with once you visualize the experience like that. And don't do it in a vacuum. Involve actual customers if you can, or at least proxies for them. Sometimes just asking a client, hey, where do we make life difficult for you, can yield incredibly candid and helpful answers. And they'll appreciate that you cared enough to ask. Consider the culture of your organization. A truly customer-centric culture empowers employees at all levels to think about the customer's journey and satisfaction. If you build that mindset, ideas for improving retention will seep out everywhere. And not just from the team at the top in a strategy session. That's actually the last place they'll usually come. Make customer experience everyone's responsibility, not just the customer service department. Finally, I have a simple and yet kind of complex item. I want to really, truly, and profoundly emphasize the importance of genuine empathy. At the end of the day, optimizing the customer journey is so that you can empathize with your clients. It's to care how they feel at each interaction. And when you genuinely care, it shows. Customers pick up on it through attentive services, thoughtful touches, and solutions that actually solve their problems. Or problems they didn't know they had yet. Empathy is contagious. It will reflect in how your customers, in turn, feel about your company. It transforms a relationship from a cold business exchange into a partnership, or even a friendship. And we all know we're far more likely to stick with a friend through thick and thin than some faceless vendor. We've talked a lot about business events industry as an example, but I want to stress these principles apply broadly. Whether you're optimizing the journey for e-commerce, a software user, a trade show exhibitor, or an association member, there are nuanced complexities and simplifications in various different parts, but the human truths are the same. People want to feel valued. They seek ease and reliability, and they enjoy personal touches. And they gravitate towards communities that align with their values and goals. Design your customer journey around those truths, and you'll be well on your way to resolving retention issues. I challenge you to take one actionable insight from today and implement it, at whatever level within your organization you are. Big or small, sole proprietor or a cog in the corporate machine. Maybe it's a small tweak, like reaching out to 3 customers this week just to check in on how things are going with no agenda. Maybe it's a bigger project, like finally overhauling that outdated onboarding packet or launching a post-event mentorship program for attendees. Whatever it is, put it into motion. Insight without action doesn't drive change. The gains in retention and client satisfaction will come when these ideas are put into practice. I have a reflective question for you to discuss with your team, or just to ponder personally. If you were your own customer, would you continue to be a customer? And why or why not? Be honest with yourself. The answers will point you to what needs to change and what you're already doing well. The fact that you're thinking about this topic means that you're on the right track. By focusing on creating better experiences, you're going to build relationships that are richer, more rewarding, and more resilient. Here's to designing journeys that blow your customers' socks off and keep them coming back. Here's to creating a win-win for your customers and your business.